Ryan, thank you again for that piece on Coach Gallagher. Now, Bruce, I know you've been following the story throughout the season. How inspirational has this been for the players at Chelmsford?
Well, I mean, I mean, first of all, just what he's gone through and how this perspective has changed Coach Gallagher's life. Had to take on a third job. I mean, the story of what happened, and then just becoming paralyzed. Yet vowing, like from day one, not going to miss a minute of the lacrosse season. He's been out there since practice. The Lowell Sun ran a great story on him before their first game about just him being back, and you can see it with the kids, how they react to him and how they're even playing. It's kind of changed the whole culture of the Chelmsford lacrosse team. Everybody has a different perspective now, but it's a positive one, and I think it's really inspirational. That's the word that you used, and it's true. You can't help but root for Tom Gallagher and those Chelmsford kids. It's just amazing what he's gone through.
So breaking down this bracket now, a team like Chelmsford, I mean, what's it going to look like for them? I mean, can they make this miracle run here? I mean, Scott, what are you seeing?
It's a great story. Obviously, I think that's an interesting matchup for them right out of the gate with Woburn. I think a very capable team there in the Middlesex. We get to see a little bit of what they did during the regular season. I think that's a tough draw for them right out of the gate. And then if they get through that, they get Acton-Boxborough running right there, coming out of their preliminary round bye. So it's kind of a tough row to hoe there for them. Nothing against the story, but again, facts are facts. I think I got Acton-Boxborough running to the finals, so I just don't see anybody being able to curtail that behemoth coming out of the DCL.
Let's talk about the other behemoth, right? I mean, Duxbury.
Who's that?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Is there a favorite in Division I ever?
Coach Sweet and the boys, they've done a great job. Their strength of schedule this year is going to bode well for this time of the season, right? I mean, they're playing some of the top teams in the United States. There's been some losses, but there's been some quality wins there as well. Is there somebody that can dethrone them? Is it AB? Do they have the talent to come across and meet them in the finals? Or is there another team, Bruce, that you see that could potentially get there for that matchup?
Well, here's the thing. They're likely to kind of walk through to the semis. A couple of Hockomock League teams in Franklin and Mansfield sitting there that probably give them the stiffest opposition. But it's the bracket down below that is just the great collection of great programs. You have Lincoln Sudbury as the 4 seed on the top of that bracket. First round game going to be against Billerica. I'm sorry, against St. John's Prep, with Billerica waiting as the 5 seed. So both Lincoln Sudbury and Billerica came within a goal this season of knocking off the Dragons. Billerica did it early when Duxbury was still playing without their full complement of team, but they did it by keeping the score low. It was a 5-4 game, forcing the Duxbury offense to really work to get goals. Lincoln Sudbury did it with Duxbury back at full strength. And Lincoln Sudbury had a chance to win that, or to tie that game. They had the ball with 20 seconds left. Confluence of events led through to a couple of shots and whatnot that just didn't fall. And Henry Bonagario, as he's done all season, came up with a big save at the very end. So, is Duxbury beatable? Maybe. And I think that these are probably your collection of teams that are going to do it, and they're all on that side of the bracket. As far as the DCL teams, we'll see. We hear a lot of chirping from the DCL fans. They want their respect, and you know what? This is the year that they're right to grow about it. I'm just not sure if Acton or Westford or any of the other teams that could come out of Division I are just ready to face what Duxbury can bring. Just my opinion.
I think, to me, Lincoln Sudbury's been the team all along, even since the preseason, without seeing that regular season game. I think Lincoln Sudbury's kind of been the team that I think on paper you can see the elements there that can give Duxbury a run for their money. I think they have the offensive talent up front. They've really come along very nicely because they gained so much. We talked about this a lot last year when Lincoln Sudbury, they were devastated by injuries. I mean, fluke things. Just a really weird season for them. And they had to endure, get into the postseason with a lot of young guys, sophomores, juniors playing up in the rotation, if you will. And they still ended up where they did, which was pretty miraculous. I think that's only going to help them this year. But to me, particularly, I think LS on the back end. I think, obviously Duxbury's, strength is on their back end as well. But those, we talk about all the time with Sexton, Tosi back there, even Dan Shaughnessy, I think a pretty good goaltender that doesn't get talked about an awful lot. I think they have the elements there to really give Duxbury a run for their money. And they did.
And they also have the experience of playing at that level. And that's, again, no disrespect to the teams on the other side of the bracket, but the teams that are used to playing at this level are Billerica, St. John's, and Lincoln Sudbury. Let's not just overlook St. John's either, by the way. 3 straight trips to the D1 finals, one of them which they did win. They did slay the dragon. Finally give all the headline writers about Boston something, the chance to break that one out. But, those, I think it's that big game experience and that being used to that competition that gives those 3 teams, whichever one comes out of there, the edge over maybe somebody from the other side.
I think it breaks down to one thing with Lincoln Sudbury. They win a face-off, they can play with anybody. Right? I mean, that's been their Achilles heel all year. They've been putting multiple guys into that rotation. Obviously, Sexton coming off the wing, and sometimes, getting at the X, and just causing chaos. So
Reed Spencer has stepped in there a few times as a senior, and actually he kind of locked it down for them against Billerica, and we'll see how that plays out. When they really pulled away from Billerica, and not that it was a surprise they won, but it was by how much they won. In that 17-9 game in the regular season. Reed Spencer stepping in like as the 5th guy that day, taking draws for LS. But on the flip side, it has been a problem all year, but they've managed to work around it. They didn't win that many faceoffs against Duxbury, and they had a chance to win the game.
I think if we learned anything this weekend from what we saw at Gillette Stadium with Loyola winning the national championship, you don't always need to win faceoffs to win a national title. Who knew?
Totally ruins my whole argument. My Fogos out there, Clay Richard, Henry Gnarly, Trevor Shore, old Lincoln Sudbury. If you're out there, my friend, I'm still pushing for you, but you got to talk to these Loyola guys. They're ruining my argument for you guys.
So let's get into the last piece of the puzzle here, right? We're in Needham, right? They're in a tough bracket with Masconomet, right? So what do you guys see in that matchup? For me, I personally think that, Masconomet's going to push its way through to Needham. I think you're going to see that matchup throughout, this season. Those 2 squads have just got it done. Kurt Hunzinger is obviously leading the way with Masco, and then you got guys like Pinto down here in Needham that, once again, offensive-laden teams that have the ability to score in bunches. I think for those 2 teams to really push through and then catch up with each other in that matchup for the bracket, I don't know who I would pick. I mean, Bruce, who do you think you'd take?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not gonna not so fast, my friend.
Okay.
Because we have a couple of the true sleepers of the Division I field in this bracket, in Andover and Xaverian. I think Andover and Xaverian are both very capable of knocking off anyone in this field. Andover has been playing very well of late. Xaverian made a big run at the end of the season. Great to see them. Great to see them back in the tournament after 2 years out. So while I love the talent that Needham and Masco has, I can't just cakewalk it for them because I think the competition in this bracket is too good. Andover as an 11 seed, but conceivably very well could come out of this bracket. Same with Xaverian, I think, is the 14 seed. They're capable, so we'll see what happens. I think, talent-wise, sure, you look to Masco and you look to Needham, but they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah. I think Needham, again, has kind of been a work in progress. Mike Panapinto, Nico's brother, obviously Nico, the All-American. Mike's such a key cog to their midfield and has been out for most of the season. I think that's changed the complexion of that team a little bit. I think with Mike in the mix, their depth has helped. I think they're just a more dynamic offense, and they're able to move, transition the ball a lot better. And then, of course, talking about transition, I think this is a game of midfielders. If you're looking at Masco and Needham in that potential matchup with obviously Toller and Hunziker, you're not going to find 2 bigger, more athletic. Hunziker is, during football season, he's a scary dude. He is a scary dude. It's scary. But I like the matchup there. Mark Riley, I think, will be kind of the fulcrum of that game if they end up matching up. Again, kind of an understated player. Does a little bit of everything and does it very well, I think. I still think Needham gets through there, and I still think Masco gets there, and I think those teams will end up matching up. Probably in the matchup, I hate to say it with the Rockets, literally standing behind me here, but I give the edge to Masco there.
So let's get into the predictions here, boys. Who do you think is going to see that final field? Who's going to be hoisting that trophy at Harvard? Bruce?
I'm kind of stuck, just because I really can't figure out who's going to come out of that bottom bracket. I like Acton-Boxborough off the top bracket. I think they're a pretty strong favorite, especially with the second trip through the DCL and how they really handled the Westford. I think that gives them a big edge the way they've been playing. Coming down from the bottom, I mean, you got Masconomet, you got Needham, you got Xaverian, you got Andover. I mean, heck, even Barnstable, if they can, beat Xaverian in the first round, you never know what they're capable of either. So, because it's such a battle down there, I kind of favor, Acton-Boxborough to get to Harvard. And, we'll have a fresh face for sure because both Duxbury and St. John's are on the left side of the bracket. So, no matter who comes out of it, we'll have a fresh face there this year. And just my call is Acton-Boxborough.
Scott?
We talked about it earlier with Acton-Boxborough. I like Acton-Boxborough to go through. I don't think there's any chance that they're not going to be there. But who's on the team? Who's the team that's on their side of the bracket? They have to play in the semifinal. I'm looking at BC High coming out, and you want to talk about great stories. Left for Dead at 1-7.
Yeah.
Left for Dead, and these kids get it together and get in the playoffs. That means something. This team has lost 1-9 out of their last 10, gets into the playoffs, and not only that, one of the best games in the tournament last year was against those two very squads, Acton-Boxborough and BC High, a game that could have went either way. Teams that are very similar, I think, in complexion and kind of play the same type of way. I don't think that game is going to be easy at all for Acton-Boxborough to get through. With that said, though, I think the Colonials move on. I think they'll meet Masco on that other side in the crossover. I think they push through there. And then, like you said, it all comes down to that other side of the bracket. Is it Lincoln-Sudbury? Does St. John's Prep have a horse in this race? Who knows? We'll see. But again, I think it's Acton-Boxborough. I look 1 against 2. I look Duxbury, AB in the final at Harvard.
I gotta have to agree with you on that one. Now we break down a potential Duxbury AB game. Duxbury's offense, high and low, right? A little bit of a roller coaster ride this season. Acton-Boxborough, on the other hand, I mean, they've been 20-goal outings. So if that matchup comes to play, and that is the number 1 versus number 2, what types of things would need to go down in order for Duxbury to win and in order for Acton-Boxborough to win? I'll put this to you first, Bruce.
Well, I mean, first of all, Acton-Boxborough just simply hasn't seen defense the likes of what Duxbury is going to bring. So those 18, 20-goal games, that's not going to happen. And that's no disrespect. It's just not going to happen. To me, Acton-Boxborough, has been, for the last couple of years, coming up with defense and goaltending. And obviously, they broke in a new goalie this year, but it hasn't missed a beat. Defense has been the foundation of this program's success with the offense coming in this year. So I really think that that's where Acton-Boxborough has a matchup that they can win. Now that said, Duxbury's attack, Duxbury's midfield is ultra talented. Slowly, each guy is having games at the end of the season. I watched Seamus Connolly light up Bishop Burton, a game we've been looking for from Seamus for a while. Did what we really all know he's capable of doing against that team. We've seen it with Paul Heller. We've seen it with Will Seaford. I mean, every time I went to a game in the beginning of the year, it was Will Seaford was the guy. Sam Sweet, could go on and on. But the scores for Duxbury have not been up in the high teens against the better competition. So I think that that's one spot where Acton-Boxborough could have not necessarily maybe an advantage, but at least maybe a break even. And that if the things go their way at the other end and they find a way to break down that Duxbury defense, they can get a couple of goals. It doesn't take 18 goals to beat them either. That's the thing. So
yeah. I think with AB, obviously we've talked about Soroka all season, from the onset. But somebody I've always been looking for throughout the season, really kind of turned my eyes open in that Lincoln-Sudbury, the first game that they played, was Tyler McKelvey. very talented scorer, All-American, a great hockey player too, led the Colonials on their run in the hockey playoffs as well. I think AB has the elements up there. What I saw from them in that early season, the defense was a little rough around the edges. A couple weeks ago when we did our picks, our mid-season picks on ESPN Boston, I picked Coach Amendolia as my coach of the year. I think what he's done with that defensive group, bringing in a lot of young guys, a lot of inexperienced guys, and getting them in the right positions to succeed and improving the transition game coming out of the back end, I think it's been a commendable job that he's done with them. But then obviously when we talk about Duxbury, you got to talk about the defense first. Obviously with all those All-Americans there, I mean, you could really go down and get a couple, some of the guys that work into the rotation could be almost All-American valuable. A kid like Chris Williams too, that we've Chris Sweet has talked to us all season long about what Williams has done for that team, especially in the leadership capability too. Kind of an understated leader on that team. I think AB has the elements, but I don't think there's quite that level to be able to knock off a team like Duxbury. I think when you look at Duxbury, as you mentioned, you look at those out-of-state games year in, year out, that battle with Girton a couple weeks back, and then of course all those New York matchups. Really the one that cemented in my mind that they were back to being where they are playing Duxbury lacrosse was that game against Niskayuna. That was a tough, heated, physical game. I mean, if you want to talk about heated,
the coaches were getting after.
Probably one of the most heated I've ever seen in my experience, from a high school level at any level. I think that was the game where Duxbury got back to playing Duxbury lacrosse, and that's something that Coach Sweet really harped on after that game was we played our game today against, again, a top 20 team in the nation on the ESPN HS poll. I think after that game, and seeing what they did against Girton, as you said, with Seamus becoming that big, physical, imposing presence up top that we've looked for all the time, I think between those two performances, those were the two where I said, I think the story's over. Duxbury's going to be our champion.
Guys, well, that breaks down all the brackets here in Massachusetts. Thank you. We'll be on hand covering with the Boston Herald, obviously ESPN Boston as well, bostonlax.net. This is going to be the first of many in the future, so make sure you tune in, follow the brackets on bostonlax.net, and hopefully you'll see three handsome young gentlemen at Gazebo sometime soon again. So thanks again, fellas, and check it out on bostonlax.net.